Thankfully, thanks to Casey, this just popped up. And I've got Shelley Rudnicki on the phone with me this morning. Good morning, Shelley. Welcome to the Freedom's Pep Rally.
Good morning, John.
So this sort of came out of the blue as far, for me, but did this, whatever it is, did it surprise you? And I haven't even seen the letter yet, although Casey sent it to me, and I'm going to look for it right now. And it is still on your page, right?
Yeah, it's still up on my page.
Okay. I'm going to bring it up here. And why don't you go ahead and tell me, I see it was signed by members of the Legislative Council and Ryan.
Well, it was actually signed by Speaker Ryan Fecteau.
Right, okay.
And then CC'd members of the Legislative Council, the Executive Director, the House Clerk, the Secretary of the Senate, and the Capitol Police.
Okay.
And they were all CC'd on this. So it basically goes back to my bringing in Dr. Naomi Wolf into the Capitol. It'll be 2 weeks
right.
on Wednesday that it happened.
Yep.
And I want to remind folks that the Capitol building is probably bigger than any Walmart out here.
It is.
And the fact that they have limited people being able to enter that building because of their so-called COVID-19 policy. And they listed three parts that I violated by bringing in Dr. Wolf. They said that I violated the clear definition of a guest because she isn't my constituent. But if I was to bring in a lobbyist who's not my constituent, isn't that the same thing?
Did they say that what? Did they say that
the number one, the very first reason it says, in defiance of the policy, knowingly sought admittance to the State House under the policy for two individuals who were not constituents and therefore did not meet the clear definition of guest set forth in the policy.
Did they present the policy and did it say constituents?
I would have to pull up the policy again. And to be honest with you, I think the policy's bogus.
Yeah, why should it matter? A guest is a guest is a guest.
It is, and it is the people's house.
Yes,
and
it
that's
is.
The thing that I'm having a real problem with is they are more concerned about the health and welfare, supposedly, of state employees than they are the people that work at Walmart.
Yeah.
Or the people that work at the corner store.
Hannaford.
Or the,
corner store, yeah. Home Depot.
Or anything
yeah.
that, those of us that, are out there working with the public.
Wow.
Because they are saying that it's COVID-19 prevention. But what I want to know, if they're going to say this as this is their prevention.
It's not.
Then I would hope that every state employee that works in that building does not go to Walmart, does not go to the grocery store.
Right.
That's why I'm so frustrated.
And by the way, we're not blaming the state employees at all. We are not blaming the state employees. It's not their fault. But you see and are they doing this for state employees, or are they doing this for power and control? Do they care about state employees really that much? Or is this a facade? Is this a ruse to make it look like they're so compassionate and feeling? Is this all about feelings again, Shelley?
I think it is. And it's about control. It's all about control.
Clearly.
And I think part of the reason they decided to do this is they're trying to intimidate me.
Yeah. Yeah,
Have you met me? I don't intimidate easily.
I have met you. I love you. You are awesome. You are awesome. And this is...
It's like, if anything, this ticks me off even more.
Yeah, absolutely. Gives you more
and
resolve.
And if I can do something to defy them again, I certainly will.
So, and good. We love your resolve. You're not backing down. They want you to back down. They think you're going to cower and crawl into a corner and say, "Oh, I'm sorry, Ryan. I'm sorry, Speaker Fecteau." But you're not going to, are you?
No, I don't cower to anybody. and I don't back down. And, I'm not at the State House today. I'm actually Zooming from home today because I have an appointment later on this afternoon.
Okay.
But I think I will be knocking on the governor's door on a regular basis again.
You should.
If I'm at the State House, I'll be knocking on her door.
Okay, so this started last March. So she's got an open door policy. She said this. She said this publicly on the TV. Open door policy. She really wants, she feels like, this is all for the greater good. Please just bear with us. It's all for the greater good. So since last March, April, May, so that's 14 months, and you were in there putting sticky notes and pounding on the door and writing her emails. How many times has she met with you in the last 14 months?
None.
There's your open door, Maine.
Not even a phone call.
There's your open door.
Phone call.
There's your open door, Maine. There it is. There it is.
And I will tell you, and I've mentioned this on my live before, is when I was, I guess, a private citizen, if you want to call it that.
Right.
I was on the school board, and when Paul LePage was governor, I actually met with him twice.
Really?
Because I set up an appointment to meet with him, and he had no problem. And he was one that always had an open door policy.
Yes.
That's what you call open door.
Yes.
Not what she's doing.
Right.
I mean, unless you're a Democrat, you don't.
You don't
and
get the.
There may be a few folks that are Republicans. I know leadership has met with her, or at least Zooming with her. But as far as the rank and file Republicans, we don't.
You're as important as the. You're as important as the leadership.
Met with me, and that could be that maybe I intimidate her.
Well, you know what? She good. But this mask has to come off. She has to, and I'm not talking about the actual mask, but this mask of hiding behind closed doors and not talking with people who represent half of Maine, by the way, is wrong. And this is not representative government. And not allowing you to have guests in by saying, well, the guests have to meet this criteria. They're human. That's the criteria. They've got to be human. Okay? Beyond that, shut up and stop with your stupid rules. If they're human, if they walk upright, no dogs, no cows, no horses, humans, yes, with a representative. And that's what you did. And you brought in somebody who had an opposing view, even though they're of the same mindset, basically, in most all things, I would imagine. When it comes to freedom, you have an anti-freedom governor and you have a pro-freedom Democrat. I guess she's a Democrat. I know she's progressive,
And the other thing they said that I did, because they have 3 different things that I did. The other thing they said I did, I was supposed to keep the guests limited to meeting the legislator in the complex under the space that the caucus controls. So I could only go to the House Republican office with my guests. And we went upstairs, and the House, because everybody was over the Civic Center, there was nobody in the House Republican office. So when we went there, I couldn't get in. So we walked down the stairs to the governor's office. And that's one of the violations that they said that I did. And then the other violation they said I did is that I tried to get into the House chamber because I walked her over to see the chamber.
Right, I saw that.
Now,
yeah,
if I wanted to get in the chamber, I have a badge. I could have swiped the badge and walked into that chamber.
Yep.
I didn't try to get it. And they're trying to make it out like we attempted to gain admittance to the governor's office. We stood outside the door. On the video, you
it's
don't
all
see
on
me
video.
trying to force my way in.
Right, it's all on video.
Yeah. But we embarrassed the governor's office and
Good.
the governor's chief of staff, and I think that's what this is all about, is that we embarrass them.
They should be embarrassed. That chief of staff, what I don't know what to make of him. He was pointing his finger down. He was mad. You don't belong in here. He was fit to be tied, that guy.
Oh yeah, because they don't want to have to answer to the public.
Of course not. It's a good old boys and girls society. But they're representing us, and they don't want us to know what goes on. It's wrong, and you're calling it out, and I love it.
Well, I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing.
Good.
And this is just, it's all a power play.
Yeah.
And so when I got this letter, the other part of this that really shows just what it's all about is the fact that they did this and didn't even ask me for an explanation. They sent this letter to the ledge. They actually asked the ledge council. They circulated a ballot rather than even having a meeting. They circulated a ballot requesting my privileges be revoked, and every Democrat voted against me, and every Republican voted for me.
Yep.
But it's circulating a ballot rather than even asking me for an explanation on any of this. It's the typical thing that they did, just like what they did in January under the mask crap that they pulled, trying to embarrass me and other legislators that were wearing a shield, and with Troy Jackson going right to the media instead of showing leadership and actually picking up the phone and calling me and the other legislators and saying, what you're wearing is really not appropriate. Would you wear a different shield or mask? Instead, they decide to go to the public and do it to the media.
Yep.
If they were true leaders, they would pick up the phone and talk to them.
They aren't. They're ass kissers. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But, that's all they are. They care, it's all insidious. Oh, I want the rest of the caucus to be happy with me and think I'm cool. So I'm going to go to the media. I can go to the media and they're going to listen to me, and I'm going to say just like it is. And I'm going to embarrass those Republicans, and they're going to think the Republicans are evil and they're trying to spread disease. And this is how they operate. And then they do all this stuff behind closed doors, including the budget, including meeting at the Civic Center where it's not socially distanced, which is the reason why they said they wanted to go to the Civic Center. This is all a ruse. It's all a huge joke. And we are we're the target of the joke, and we don't think it's funny.
No, but and right now it almost seems kind of like, what can we do?
Right.
And I think that's the issue everybody is feeling, is like, well, what can we do? They're controlling everything. And I think that's the hardest part for me, other than to keep speaking out. I don't know what else I can do.
Right. Yeah, I know. I mean, your hands are you're bound by the mob.
Right.
It's not quite as violent a mob as we've seen in some of the cities, but it's a mob. It's mob think, group think, nonetheless. They think as a group, and the governor thinks right along with them. That's why she refuses to talk. And you're not the only Republican who says the governor has not reached out or gotten back to them. I've talked with several Republicans, senators and representatives, as you know, and none of them say the governor has been of any use whatsoever to their constituents.
And I really I wish we could do more. And I think we just need to keep speaking out. We need to keep putting pressure on. And, one of the things that I actually got a message from somebody, and if you look at the numbers from the start of this to December, and how many deaths there were in the state of Maine under their COVID stuff.
Right.
It was like 240. And when the governor put in her mask mandate and without any kind of medical exemptions, it's almost a 200% increase, over a 200% increase.
Interesting,
How
isn't
is that possible if masks work and if masks are not the problem at this point?
Right. But the masks are now a tool of the left.
Yeah, it's a tool to control us.
Right.
And that's what all of this is about. That's what this letter is about to me. This is what, all of this stuff is about. And, I mean, I'll just keep speaking out, and that's all I can do. And I'll make sure that when I get things like this, that I will make them public.
Absolutely.
I mean, I'm just going to keep making this stuff public whenever I can.
Let me read the last paragraph here. This is after they voted 6-4 to suspend your guest privileges. And not right in the people's house. It's a privilege. You notice how rights are now privileges. Have you noticed this trend?
Mm-hmm.
I've got more proof of this later on with Dr. Fauci and CNN, Jake Tapper. Here's the last paragraph of the letter after the 6-4 vote to suspend your privileges. This decision is not one that was made lightly, but one that was necessary to protect health and safety. The Legislative Council passed the COVID-19 prevention policy to minimize the spread of the disease and protect the health and safety of legislators who aren't there, legislative staff, and others in light of risks presented by the highly contagious COVID-19. This policy will only be effective if it is followed by all those who come into the State House. You were masked. You guys did it right. What? It's lies. It is lies there. What if Ryan Fecteau, I wonder, I'm drawing conjecture here. What if Ryan Fecteau had somebody from the media from New York City who he wanted to bring in to talk to the governor and knocked on the door? Do you suppose he would have gotten the reception you and Naomi Wolf got?
Oh, no, of course not.
Right. It's hypocrisy. It's two different. One's a right for the left, and it's obviously a revocable privilege for you.
Well,
and that's
what they're trying to say. And some people have been like, well, what gives you the right to, and I've heard this, some of it's been posted on my page or whatever. What gives you the right, to think that the governor will answer your knock? And I'm just like, wait a minute. She's the governor. She's not God.
Right. Exactly. You're right. You'd have all you've got to do is say a prayer to get to God. You don't have a prayer of getting to Governor Mills.
No.
If you're a Republican, apparently.
No.
Wow. So are you going to fight this? Are you going to fight this revocation?
Well, there's not so here's the thing. It's pretty asinine because to what end is this letter? Because if I really wanted to bring somebody in, all I have to reach out is to any of my caucus members, and I'm sure they would bring those people in.
Right. Now,
and not only that, they're only allowing, this is the kicker in this whole thing. It's only 2 guests per caucus.
Right.
So they're only allowing 8 total guests in the Capitol.
At a time?
At a time.
Really?
If you follow their COVID rules, which is 2 guests per caucus.
Go to Walmart or a Hannaford or a small store or any restaurant. You're right. You're absolutely right. And these people have...
It actually makes no sense. I am signing on to the lawsuit. This will actually be part of that.
Thomas Renz?
As well.
Is that the Thomas Renz lawsuit against the governor?
There's a lawsuit that's part that Heidi Sampson is involved in, and that's the one.
Okay, yeah, I think it's the same one. Yeah. Oh, geez, I really hope that gets traction. I really do.
Yeah, me too.
Now, are the rest of the Republicans as obviously many of them aren't as vocal. Some are. Heidi Sampson's a good example. But are they there with you? Are there any that are saying, well, there's kind of right. You really shouldn't be bringing people in. Are there some wishy-washy people on the Republican side who are sort of...
Not that I've had the opportunity to talk to. Again, we're not together.
Right.
So we don't see, each other or see as much of each other. We were actually supposed to go in session on Thursday, but a couple people have tested positive for COVID, so that they have put session off until next week.
Okay. Well, I know COVID rates are on the uptick, but the way I look at it is the more people get it, and there are less people dying. There are less and less people dying, because the older population, the most vulnerable, are and they should be getting vaccinated. Right. So that's happening. And so we're seeing less deaths. It has a very high recovery rate. But the COVID is going up. But those people, and we'll get to this. I've got a piece on this later in the show. The people who have had COVID-19, I don't believe should be required to get a vaccine, are they talking about in the legislature that you have heard? Are they talking about requiring the vaccine in order to travel by maybe presenting a vaccine passport or something similar?
Well, I know it's been talked about in a variety of ways. I know that with the immunization policies that are currently in effect for other immunizations, and that's actually been in education again this week. There's more talk about having the medical exemption, because I know people that cannot have the vaccine.
Right.
I know people that don't want to have the vaccine.
Right.
And it is still an experiment. And that's what people don't getting across too. It is still an experiment.
Right. It's an emergency approval, and
right.
the news is not reporting that. They aren't reporting that it got emergency approval and that this isn't officially approved by the FDA. And as you know, maybe or maybe not as a result of the fact it hasn't been tested enough, there are some side effects that can be very serious. In fact, again, to tease something coming up, you may want to hear this. 17-year-old boy in Utah, 17-year-old high school athlete, severe reaction. Not sure if he's going to survive or not.
Wow.
We'll talk. We've got his mother was on a newscast in Utah, and we'll hear her later on and hear what happened there. It's heartbreaking and a little scary. You know, people who aren't really at risk if they get COVID-19 are maybe at more risk as a result of the vaccine. And so there's a lot to consider. And again, I don't say that you shouldn't get the vaccine. I'm not going to do that. That's up to the individual.
Right.
But
I shouldn't be judged for not getting it, and you shouldn't be judged for getting it.
Right.
It should be your choice.
Absolutely.
On whether or not you get the vaccine. And I think, and I actually had, so Representative Tracy Quint is a nurse.
Yep.
And she is from up in the county. And we were actually talking not too long ago about the youth getting the vaccine and why they're pushing it on youth. And part of the reason they are doing that or pushing it or making it available to the youth is so that they can then require it. But they have to have so many that get it under their under the protocols to be able to make it available for the young people.
Right. Well,
she was kind of explaining that to me, but I'm not much into the science.
Yeah, well, you know, I live with a couple of nurses in my immediate family, so you know, and I'm probably going to make the decision. You know, much to the dismay of some of my listeners, I'm sure, I'm probably going to get the vaccine because you know I do have underlying health conditions, and at my age, you know, what's the worst that's going to happen? What's going to be worse? Getting the disease or possible, albeit a small chance of an immediate reaction from the vaccine. Potatoes. So I don't know. That's the way I'm looking at it. Plus, you know, my family nurses are saying I should get it, and that certainly carries a lot of weight. It is my choice.
And that's what it needs to come down to, is it being your choice.
Amen. That's well said. Absolutely well said. So I'm trying to think because we're going to have our update. You're going to be on Thursday with us still, right?
Yes.
Okay, good. So we'll have an update then. I'm trying to think if there's did we leave anything on the table last Thursday that we were going to follow up on? I can't remember, to be honest with you.
I don't think so. I do, just to let everybody know that there is a work session tomorrow on the qualified immunity for police officers.
Oh, wow.
Might be a good idea to pay attention to the Judiciary Committee tomorrow. It's a pretty important thing, and if that comes out of committee, that's a dangerous bill that's gonna. And right now in my committee, I actually have it on in the background here. Is they're dealing with closing of Long Creek. They want to close the Long Creek facility. So,
they don't like prisons. They don't like prisons. They don't like locking up residents, as we now call them, apparently.
Yes.
I mean, what? Well, I mean, this is just topsy-turvy world under the now on this qualified immunity. Just to recap, qualified immunity would allow people who feel hurt, they feel targeted if a police officer does something they don't, if they have to use deadly force, if maybe they tase them because, I don't know, they feel threatened and they fall to the ground and break an arm, it opens the police up for personal lawsuits, and they could lose everything they personally own based on the whim of somebody who feels they were hurt, right?
Yes. Yeah. And that's the dangerous part about it, because I think we're going to lose a lot of police officers. I mean, I've heard from police officers, and I know other legislators have heard from police officers that will choose to leave the profession.
Right.
Rather than lose their home, take that chance of losing their home. And it's not, because qualified immunity doesn't mean that if they break the law, they don't have immunity.
Right.
Right. And that's but guess what? Legislators have immunity.
Yeah, isn't that something? And tell me, when legislators, how many times a week do you think your life is on the line? Well, now, who knows, but your life is on the line when you go to the State House. I mean, it's not, right? Right, it's not. You're not going to have an armed confrontation with a thug, most likely.
Right.
But
no, and that's the scary part. And the fact that, they're trying to take this away from our police officers, and put their lives in the danger. They don't make a lot of money.
Right. No.
And to take these chances, it's just wrong. But it is coming, it is a work session tomorrow, because they've had the public hearing.
Yep.
It is a work session tomorrow in Judiciary. So, it can be watched on YouTube. Good,
but we can't interact, though, right?
No,
okay.
No. During a work session, the only way folks can interact is if you're invited in by one of the legislators.
Okay. But you can't invite anybody in anymore.
Well, I mean onto the Zoom, but I couldn't anyway because it's not my committee.
Oh, I see. Okay, so it's Judiciary.
So it has to be a committee member.
Now there's a separate channel for each of these. Each of these branches, right? Is there a Judiciary YouTube channel? Okay.
Yeah. If you go to legislature, I think it's legislaturemaine.gov.
Yep.
And go into the committee section, and whatever committee that you choose, there's actually a YouTube channel. You can click on that, and it'll take you right to the YouTube channel too. So
terrific. Perfect. All right. Well, Representative Shelley Rudnicki, District 108, Smithfield, Mercer, Fairfield. Thank you so much.
Sure, anytime.
And I appreciate your being there like lickety split. I just got this message on our video feed, and I thought I hadn't seen this letter, and I'm glad I called you before I looked at it, because I was going to ask for it. This seems to be going a long way to silence speech they do not agree with under the guise of public health. It's laughable, Representative Rudnicki. It's a joke, really.
It is. I believe it's a joke.
and why did the Capitol Police? Here's a fair question. Say you go in with a guest, what's going to happen to you? What are they going to do? Are they going to physically remove you and the guest? And how would that look on video? They
probably will keep the guests from going in.
You have to pass through.
They can stop the guests at the security right there. They can stop that. I mean, that's the only thing I can think of they can do. They can't stop me from going in.
Right.
But they can stop the guests because, there's a sign at the front door that, it's closed to the public until further notice.
And it's been that way since last March, so we can't go in there. Wow. I never thought we'd see this. I never dreamt we would ever see anything like this. This is scary times. Really is.
It certainly is.
Representative Shelley Rudnicki, thank you so much for your time again, and keep fighting the fight. I'm telling you, you're going at them there, and I love it. I love your resolve. Well, thanks, John. And we'll talk with you Thursday, if not before. We'll see what comes up. Okay, sounds good. All right, and what time is that judiciary hearing tomorrow on the? I believe it starts at 9 a.m. 9 a.m. Okay. All right, great. All right. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Have
bye.
a great day, Shelley.